There's a truth no one taught you in childhood. You don't need to be always available. You don't need to respond immediately. You don't need to explain every silence, justify every absence, or carry the emotional weight of those who chose to deposit their wounds on you. But since you were small, they conditioned you to believe that your goodness is measured by your availability. That being a good person means always being present when someone needs you, even when that presence consumes you, even when that being there steals pieces of your own soul. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted by the world. And perhaps the most dangerous mask is this: the eternally available one, the one who never says no, the one who always has time, the one who carries others' pain as if it were their own. But today, I want to show you something different. I want to teach you about the power that exists in conscious withdrawal, in chosen silence, in absence as presence. Because when you stop being always available to others, something extraordinary happens. You finally become available to yourself. And this is the first fragment of a greater truth. Not every solitude is abandonment. Sometimes it's liberation. Jung understood something that most people never grasp. The human psyche operates like an energy system. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction costs you something. And when you're constantly available to everyone else's needs, you're essentially running a 24-hour charity with your own soul as the donation. Think about your last week. How many times did you feel that familiar exhaustion that has nothing to do with physical work? That emptiness that settles in after you've spent hours listening to complaints, solving problems that aren't yours, or responding to emotional emergencies that somehow always seem to land on your doorstep. This isn't coincidence. This is energetic vampirism, and you've been taught to call it caring. There's a difference between genuine compassion and compulsive caretaking. Compassion comes from a place of strength and choice. Compulsive caretaking comes from fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of not being needed anymore. But here's what no one tells you. When you're available to everyone, you're truly available to no one, including yourself. Jung spoke of psychic energy as something finite, precious. When you scatter it indiscriminately, responding to every emotional demand, engaging in every drama, you become like a phone with a constantly draining battery, always tired, always on edge, always running on empty. The people who benefit from your overavailability can sense this depletion, and instead of encouraging you to recharge, they demand more. Because your exhaustion makes you manageable. Your depletion makes you predictable. Here's a truth that will disturb you. Most people in your life aren't relating to you. They're relating to what you provide. The comfort, the validation, the emotional labor, the problem solving, the constant availability. And the moment you stop providing these services, you'll discover who was genuinely connected to you and who was simply using you as an emotional vending machine. Jung wrote extensively about projection, how people see in others what they refuse to acknowledge in themselves. But there's a darker side to this mechanism that few discuss: projective manipulation. When people project onto you the role of the eternal helper, the always understanding friend, the never complaining supporter, they're not seeing you. They're seeing their own need for a reliable emotional resource. And you, in your desire to be loved and needed, accept this projection. You become the person they need you to be rather than the person you actually are. This creates what I call the availability trap. The more available you are, the more people expect your availability. The more you respond immediately, the more they expect immediate responses. The more you solve their problems, the more incapable they become of solving problems themselves. You've become an enabler disguised as a helper. Watch what happens when you break the pattern, when you don't respond within the expected time frame, when you say, "I can't help with that right now," when you maintain boundaries instead of immediately accommodating. The manipulation reveals itself: guilt trips, emotional dramatics, accusations of selfishness. You've changed. You don't care anymore. What happened to the old you? Translation: you're no longer functioning as our emotional utility, and that threatens our comfort zone. Silence is not the absence of communication, it's the presence of choice. When you stop responding immediately to every text, email, and emotional crisis, something profound happens. You break the spell of automatic reactivity. You reclaim your right to pause, to consider, to respond from a place of intention rather than compulsion. But this kind of silence terrifies people, not because they miss you, but because your silence forces them to sit with themselves. And for many people, that's unbearable. Your constant availability served as their escape from their own inner noise. Your immediate responses provided them with a sense of control over their environment. Your emotional labor helped them avoid doing their own psychological work. When you withdraw that service, they're forced to confront what they've been avoiding: themselves. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow. That moment when we must face the parts of ourselves we'd rather project onto others. Your unavailability becomes a mirror that reflects their dependency, their inability to self-soothe, their emotional immaturity. And mirrors, as you know, can be quite disturbing to those unprepared to see their reflection. This is why your silence will be met with resistance, why your boundaries will be tested, why your newfound unavailability will be labeled as selfishness, coldness, or worse. But here's what they don't understand. Your silence isn't about them. It's about you finally listening to yourself. For years, you've been so busy responding to everyone else's needs that you've forgotten what your own voice sounds like, your own desires, your own boundaries, your own truth. Silence creates the space for self-discovery. In that quiet space where other people's voices can't reach, you begin to hear something that's been waiting patiently for your attention, your authentic self. There comes a moment in every person's psychological evolution when they must choose: remain the person everyone expects them to be, or become the person they truly are. This choice cannot be made without loss. You will lose people who only valued you for your function. You will lose relationships built on your overgiving. You will lose the identity you've constructed around being needed by others. But in that loss, something extraordinary is born: your authentic self. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward wholeness. It requires you to withdraw your projections from others and reclaim the disowned parts of yourself. It requires you to stop living for external approval and start living from internal truth. When you become consciously unavailable to others' demands, you become available to your own growth. The energy you once spent managing everyone else's emotions can now be invested in understanding your own. The time you once gave to solving others' problems can now be used to pursue your own goals. This is not selfishness, this is psychological maturity. The people who remain in your life after this transformation will be different. They will be those who can appreciate your depth rather than exploit your availability. They will be those who respect your boundaries rather than constantly test them. Quality replaces quantity. Depth replaces breadth. Authentic connection replaces compulsive caretaking. You discover that you are not responsible for others' emotions, others' choices, or others' growth. You are responsible only for your own. And that responsibility, fully embraced, becomes the foundation of true freedom. The butterfly emerges not by fighting the cocoon, but by transcending it entirely. The greatest paradox of human psychology is this: when you stop trying to be everything to everyone, you become something meaningful to yourself. When you withdraw from the exhausting theater of constant availability, you discover what it means to be truly present, not to others' needs, but to your own life. The butterfly doesn't apologize for leaving the cocoon. It doesn't explain its transformation to the caterpillar still crawling on the ground. It simply spreads its wings and flies. Your unavailability is not cruelty. It's metamorphosis. Choose yourself. Not because you don't care about others, but because you finally care enough about yourself to honor your own existence. The world will adjust. It always does. But you will finally be free.